Hello, and welcome to the weekly LinkedIn Live Leadership Series, Voices of Leadership. Thank you for joining us. I'm Kathy Eastwood, the CEO of Equals Y and the host of this series. Each week, we explore the fascinating world of leadership, featuring voices across different generations, industries, styles, and experiences. Because there's no right way to lead. It's all about being authentic, showing up and being yourself. Each week, we're going to meet a different leader and understand what really drives them, what's their unique leadership style, how do they adapt, and maybe what are their tips and tricks. So I'm really excited to have my good friend and trusted colleague, Bill Balnave, join us today. Bill and I go way back. In fact, over 20 years. Can you believe that, Bill?
No.
He's really someone who has truly mastered the art of leadership in tech sales. So Bill kicked off his impressive career with a solid foundation in mathematics and computer science from Michigan State University. But instead of sticking to COBOL programming at a Fortune 50 company, Bill was drawn to the thrilling world of tech startups. His journey through various roles in sales engineering, customer success, and product management have given him a treasure trove of insights. And as he says, a ton of scar tissue. What's really cool about Bill is how he's taken his depth and tech knowledge and turned into towards helping others grow. He's the brain behind the 6 Habits of Highly Effective Sales Engineer certification program, and he hosts a weekly live session that's a must watch for anyone in tech sales. Bill's also an author. His book, Tech Sales Wasabi, is a fantastic guide for anyone managing or working as sales engineers. He compares sales engineers to growing wasabi, tricky, but incredibly valuable. It's a brilliant analogy that shows just how much care and expertise Bill believes in giving to his teams. Throughout our years of working together, especially through some of the high times and low times at
Mm.
Mercury and HP Software, I've seen Bill not just manage, but lead with a genuine spirit that inspires everyone around him. We've shared countless conversations about what it means to lead versus manage, and I always come away with new ideas. So, welcome, Bill. So excited to have
Yeah.
you on.
Very happy to be here. Very lucky and privileged. Thank you, Kathy.
Thanks. Well, so I did the formal introduction. Why don't I give you a couple minutes? Why don't you share with the audience, who you are and how you show up typically as a leader?
Yeah, I mean, the who I am part is, yeah, I think you kind of described it aptly. I went to college, I got a computer science degree, a math degree, I went and got a job. I thought, hey, this is it. I got my job at my Fortune 10 company, 30 years and out. And I realized it was a couple of years in, like it was not really doing it for me. And I wanted more, and more was legitimate and possible. I went to school with the attitude of, like, this was the formula: go to school, get degree, get job, married, kids, retire, whatever. Like, not realizing, first of all, how boring that was, and then second of all, how dangerous potentially. As I saw, like, my father and my first wife's father end up on the career heap of rejected leaders in their late 50s, and then unable to find a job and all of that. And I realized, like, you really have to kind of take control of your career yourself. Think of yourself as your own business, be your own CEO, all that kind of good stuff. And I think in the midst of all that, and I really kind of embraced the notion of being a professional. So constantly developing myself, taking whatever role I was doing seriously. It was interesting. Like, I would look at professional athletes and be like, oh my God, those guys are like, they're living their dream and they're so passionate about it. Like, and the rest of us are just going to work and punching a clock and all of that. And I realized, like, well, wait a minute, like, why don't I just turn what I'm like, first of all, get passionate about what I'm doing, do something I can be very passionate about, and think of it the same way. And I think my transition into tech sales really helped that. I think I, like many people, had this attitude of, well, sales is just something anybody can do. You just, as long as you know what you're doing, you just go and you talk about your stuff and then you sell it. And it's not that at all. Like, there's a set of skills and skills you got to work on, and all of that. And that's when I kind of embraced this whole notion of, like, developing myself, and yeah, and treating it like a profession. And when I got the opportunity to manage, I was lucky enough to be managed by someone who took management and people leadership very seriously. And it got me in the right mindset. And I found it to be just extremely rewarding. Um, the notion of being able to help somebody else in their career and move them along and all of that, like, yeah, I loved it. And
But
I have an impressive
there's
thing.
so much to unpack there. But
Yeah.
one of the things just right there that you said, it's a profession, but also being a manager, what I'm hearing you say is it's not just, oh, I was doing a great job and now, I'm going to do it and manage other people. That it's
No,
a different role.
yeah, 100%. In fact, that was probably the best piece of advice that I got, when I got promoted was, you're not being promoted to just be the best SE on the team. You're being promoted to make sure that this team of people that you're leading has everything that they need to be successful, and that you're holding them accountable to that standard of success, and doing everything that you can to coach and develop them so that they can, they can realize their fullest potential.
Yeah, and then that's so power. And I think so many people don't recognize that, right? Because we often promote because people are fabulous individual contributors. And it's like, okay, just
Yeah.
keep going. And
Yeah, keep doing it well. And here's the problem with that, right? And I needed to come to this, like, it didn't just happen to me, like it came over time. People that are typically at the top of their game are at the top of their game, one, because like they execute, and for them, the fallback is, well, I'm just going to go get it done. I'm not going to wait for anybody. I'm not waiting for permission. I'm just going to go do it. That's the opposite of what you need to be doing as a leader, right? So you've got to unlearn that. The other thing is, like, and especially in technical sales, when you're at the, when you're one of the better ones, you get a lot of recognition, and that recognition motivates and fuels you to do even better. And again, when you're leading people, like, that's the opposite of the position that you're in. You don't want to be, as the leader, the one receiving all the recognition. You want to make sure that the folks that work for you are in the position to receive that, like, you're boosting and promoting them. So it's almost like you've got to completely forget a lot of what made you as good, the top person on the team or in the organization, and start over, which, by the way, also applies to sales. So, like, sales is very counterintuitive. So maybe that was helpful, but yeah, I mean, when you move into leadership, it's like you've got to wipe out many of the things that helped get you there.
yeah. And checking the ego at the door, right? That
Yep.
we've talked about that over the years. It's really hard to say, okay, now I am going to be, how do I let someone else shine and let that go? Because that's, when you're that lead sales engineer, you're like, hey, I'm getting all this, the money, the recognition, the fame, all of
It's
that.
awesome. It's very
Yeah.
intoxicating. Yeah. Very
It is.
intoxicating.
So, Bill, how would you describe your leadership style?
Yeah.
And how has it evolved over the years?
um it's funny, like, I don't know, I don't I think it's softened a bit over the years, right? Like, I always tell people, like, I'm going to give you my best. I'm going to demand your best from you. I'm never going to ask you to do anything that I wouldn't myself do. I'm going to do everything that I can to lead from behind when it's necessary, but also be in the front when I need to be. Because I don't think it's just one. I don't think it's one or the other. I think it depends on the situation. And then, I always say, look, I consider my job to be, I'm going to do everything that I can to make sure that you have what you need to be successful. I'm going to make sure that I'm putting you in positions for you to be successful. But at the same time, it's my job to hold you accountable to what that success is. So, I'm not going to micromanage. I'm going to give you, here's the standard, here's the objective, here's what we need to accomplish. I'm going to trust that you're going to do it until I don't see that you're able to do it, and then I'm going to step in and help you out. So I
Yep.
guess that encapsulates.
No, that's fair. And like as you've grown over the years, you said you softened a bit. but what else have you learned, and like what else do you bring to the table nowadays? And
Yeah, when I say I softened a bit, like, look, I was, as you know, a very intense person. Still am a very intense person, and I think early on in my people leadership part of my career, I would be like, look, I told you to do that. Why the hell haven't you done it? Like, let's go. Come on. And, you know, it took me some time to realize, first of all, everybody's different and that's okay. And second of all, and you were a big help in this, people receive things differently. And it's my job to communicate to them in the way that they can receive it. Right. So getting on a call with my team and saying, we are going to do this, and then ending the call, I would, in the early part of my management career, I'd be assuming like, okay, everybody got that. Like now I can hold them accountable to it. It's like, no, that's not true. Other people need to hear it one-on-one. They need to have it reinforced. They need to have it written out for them. They need to see pictures. They need whatever. Like, and guess what? That's my job to do that. It's not their job to try to go figure it out, because that's, you know, that's going to be impossible sometimes. So that's, to me, that was the softening part. That was the like, okay, I need to realize like I've got a team of different, like everybody's an individual. I need to meet them where they are, and what I would expect of myself. I can't expect it in the same way from the other folks that work for me. And having a team that is diverse cognitively and personalities is better than having a team of people that are all the same. Way
yeah,
better.
yeah,
Right.
no, I
So
agree.
so you create that complication. It's like, all right, first of all, if you accept the fact that having diversity in personalities and emotional makeup and character and all that is a good thing, then you have to accept the fact that that means now I've got to treat each of these people differently and figure out how to communicate with them, and, you know, and work that way. It's
Yeah.
hard.
And you're reminding me of one of you and I had actually done a team building event together. And it was fascinating to go through the event, and we were getting what everyone's personality was, where they got their energy from, what they cared about. And you had an extremely diverse team of,
Yeah.
experiences, cultures, generations, right? And all of a sudden, when we asked everyone to come together and share their values, what they loved, we found core nuggets that everybody held, right? So in this diversity came commonality, and that's what became the heart of your team.
Yeah. That's a great way to put it. Yeah. Very true. Very
Yeah,
true.
and it's something when we did that exercise, it's stayed with me for a long time, because you want that diversity, right? When you don't have that diversity, then you don't have innovation, you don't have, you know, different ways to solve problems, etc.
Yeah. And, you know, it's funny as you're saying that, I'm thinking to myself, like, well, not only do you need the diversity, but you need to come to appreciate it, I think, as well. And that was something that I had to learn how to do. Like, just because that person's different doesn't lessen their opinion or their perspective. In fact, it sometimes makes it more valuable.
Yeah. And it's hard for you and I both share, I've talked to the audience quite a bit on the clarity 4D and the energies. You and I both share a lot of red energy, right? Like we're running to the fire, we're getting things done. We love being, with people. We get our energy from that, but not everyone does. And
Yeah.
finding where people come in and have that different energy is fascinating, and to watch them grow, right? And watch,
Yeah. Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah. 100%. 100%. And you end up learning a lot about yourself, actually, I think, especially when you really try to put yourself into, okay, how do I communicate? To your point, I'm very red to the extreme, right? Red and yellow. When I'm dealing with somebody who is blue, who wants details, who needs to be talked through every little thing, I'm like, oh, I gotta go. But at the same time, like, I have come to learn, like, oh, wait a minute, your lack of focus on detail ends up being a weakness for you in a lot of cases. And, I would think to myself sometimes, like, oh my gosh, this person, they're being weighed down by their need to have everything. And it helped me realize, yeah, but uh to your point, like, my impulse to just simply run to whatever I think is the right thing also, it tends to bite me in the ass a lot of times too. So it's, it's good.
Yeah. So one of the things, I'm going to kind of put you on the spot a little bit. Well, you've been a big part of understanding the evolution of the E3 leadership code, right? And how we need to express that in vision. When you can tell people where you're going, you talked a lot about engaging people the where and meeting them where they need to be, right? Executing, and then the emotional qualities, right? Really connecting to people's heart. You talked a lot about that in your style now. But one thing that you and I have discussed at length is also experience. And you've challenged me a couple of times saying, "Hey, you really need to bring experience in." And talk to us about what you mean by that and why you're passionate about that. This just you can't just learn everything overnight.
Yeah. And especially in regards to, as we talk to the younger generation who, thanks to social media, think they can just pop on and they have a great idea and broadcast and like, oh, look at my knowledge. Not that I'm knocking them. I have come to believe, and I didn't always believe this, but I've come to believe that there are certain things, certain knowledge that you gain only through repetition and time. And, you know, as an SE, I would learn a demo. I would think I'd learned a demo script. Oh, I memorized the flow. And then I would demo it and like realize like, oh, like I didn't expect that question. I didn't know this was going to have like, there's a whole bunch of things that I couldn't prepare for that only came as a result of me demoing, 10 or 15 or 20 times or whatever. Like I think about my time at Aptio where my first demo was abysmal. Like it was awful. Like I got one question and I was done. I didn't know what to do. The AE had to step in and like answer for me. And I'm like, oh my God. And 3 years later, Sonny could call me up on stage and be like, hey, Bill, can you just do this really? And I'd be like, oh yeah, well, and it would like, so I went from unconsciously incompetent to consciously to competent to unconsciously competent. But that was only through time.
Mm,
And it really hit me, and you'll appreciate this, when I was first learning how to golf and I was playing with a bunch of guys, and I tell this story a lot. Like one of the guys pulled me aside one day and he's like, Billy, love playing golf with you, but you're awful. So if you're gonna keep playing golf with us, like you really like need to hit the range, like learn how to play, because it's not fun. Like you're a great guy and you want to have beers and all that, but like this is not. And I'm like, He's like, look, you don't have a right to be angry with your game because you don't practice it. And I took that to heart and I started going 3 or 4 times a week. And it took a while, but there was a moment, and I still remember it, where everything just clicked. And I hit a ball and I watched it go, and I'm like, and then I did the same motion again and again. And then I adjusted it and the ball flight changed. And I realized like it was only through that repetition that the connection between brain and physical and all of that, like it all came together. And then I became aware of it and was able to use it. So I just think that there are certain things that you don't get, that you don't understand unless you've had a certain set of experience.
yeah. No, I agree. And it's, as you know, with equals Y, like one of the things we don't want to be doing is one and done training, but it has to be continuously practiced,
Which
right?
nobody
Because
seems to accept, by the way, and it really just drives me crazy. Like, oh, hey, we did the training, go do. Like, no,
yeah,
it's not
we
how it
lose
works.
like 90% of that in that training,
Yeah,
right? It is
like
about that repetition and the good practices and, over and over again. And leadership is like that. You can absolutely learn it. And some people are born this way. We've had the conversation, right? That some people are naturally good at it, but you can learn it, you can practice, and you have to practice it over and over again. It'd be interesting. Do you know when that clicked for you in your career? And it's something that I know I'm going to go back and say, when did that click for me? Because it did suddenly click at some point, right? Of, oh, this is why I'm doing this. And this is how I do it.
it's funny. Like, I don't know if I remember exactly like when that happened. I think it was probably it's probably with Mercury actually, which is like my third SE role.
Yeah. It's I think it is accumulative, right? And I think the other thing that I've learned over the years is you have to do it. So it's your own practice, but you can also watch others. Right. So, when I was an SC starting out, I used to watch other people's demos. I would join every single demo that I could to watch other people. What questions did they have? How did they do it? So you can learn also by
I always did.
grabbing
Yeah,
other experience,
I always
right?
did.
And
I always like
so
those sessions where, we would do some training and then we would have to demo to each other. To me, that was always, yeah, because I the same way, like I would always take a nugget from how somebody presented something, or whatever it happened to be. And then I always kind of bristled when people were like, "Oh, that's a waste of time to sit there and watch each other demo." I'm like, well, you're not paying attention then. Like it's valuable,
yeah, that's the most
hugely
important.
valuable. You catch people's different styles and all of that, yeah, and incorporate some stuff for sure.
So speaking of that, and you think back, we learn through osmosis, right? And you mentioned that first boss you had really helped you learn a lot. What are some other experiences, whether it was like the worst boss you ever had or your best boss? What are some of the things that you learned and you said, yeah, I want to emulate that or I will never do that?
I remember there are a couple of things. I can remember a moment where, and this is between Clarify and Mercury. Like after Clarify got bought, like there was a like everybody kind of scrambled to go find another software company to work for, and Clarify was cool. It was the first time I actually got sales training and things like that, and I look back and I'm like, that was a high caliber of salespeople. So I had a degree of cockiness, and I went to this other company, and I remember going through their SE enablement, and I had to demo to my boss and to my boss's boss, and I thought I knew everything, and my boss's boss was like, "Hey, let me ask you a couple questions. What's this? What's this?" And I answered, and at the end, she was like, "Okay, you answered that all completely wrong. You got the message completely wrong. That's not at all how we need to be demoing this." I'm like, what? I'm a great demo. Like I'm a great SE. What are you talking about? Like, and it made me realize that just because I was great at one place didn't mean that I shouldn't start over. And like I was always having to learn, always having to practice the basics, always having to do um that kind of stuff. I think that was one really big moment for me. I'm trying to think of some
Well, I
like
want to hold on a second. How did you feel about getting that feedback? And if
I
you
was
look back,
I was embarrassed. And when she called me on it, I realized like, yeah, I made a lot of assumptions and I acted on confidence, not on knowledge.
but what if she didn't have that conversation with you?
Yeah, I would have gone on and to be a miserable and awful SE in that company.
Yeah, and I bring it up because I hear a lot of times people are nervous about giving adjusting feedback or negative feedback and things like that. But that feedback really changed your trajectory.
Yeah, big time. It's interesting. I read the book Top Grading. I don't know if you've read Top Grading. I kind of read it. Like I read
Yeah.
it's a huge book, right? I read the first couple chapters. So I was looking for, forget who recommended it to me, but I was looking for a better way to hire. And and I don't remember the author's name. Um, he makes the point that everybody has the opportunity to be an A player somewhere, but they're not necessarily in the job that they're in or their job that you're hiring for. And if they're not going to be an A player, then it's your responsibility to help them find where they can be an A player, right? So adjusting feedback is not personal and it's not cruel and all of that. Is it going to hurt sometimes? Yeah, it is. But that person will never achieve their A player status if they're not given that feedback, and you have to make the assessment and say like, look, hey, I love you as a person. You're not an A. This is not the role for you. You're not going to be an A player here. You need to go, or you can be an A player, but you need to be able to do these things in order for you to, to be good.
Yeah. And that's the powerful. Like you think back on how you receiving that and how that's changed you. And then do you now incorporate that in your leadership style?
Big time. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think I had to learn how to deliver that kind of feedback in a way that would be received, not because well, look, I'm lazy to a degree, right? And my attitude for a while was always like, well, I'm just going to tell you that, like, that's, you just got to deal with it. That's the way that it is. But that's not necessarily helpful. Going back to that whole point of like, you have to communicate in a way that people receive it. Like, you really, when if you want adjusting feedback to be uh, valuable and worth it, if you don't deliver it the right way, like it's wasted, right? So,
Yeah. Yeah. One of the things we've also talked a lot about over the years is management versus leadership.
mm.
And, we've gone back and forth. Share with the audience what your points of view are related to this.
HP taught me that management is friggin' important. And here's why it taught me that it's important. Like in the first month that we were acquired, that Mercury was acquired, we had to do a workforce reduction. I didn't know half of the people on my team because I hadn't been doing, and I didn't know who was good or not good, and I had no methodology for any of that. And I basically had to go on instinct, which is no way to manage a team of people. So to me, good management is having a methodology by which I have the ability to assess everyone on my team, coach them, move them, understand kind of where they are in their career path, what they need to do to improve and to be better, and to all of that, and do that on a regular basis and keep that regular cycle going. Like leadership is great, inspiring people, motivating them, teaching them to do, to realize their full potential. But when you're responsible, this I guess is what it is. Like as a people manager, I'm responsible for that person's career. That's my
Yeah.
friggin' job. And if I don't have a methodology, and a framework by which I'm doing that, and if I'm not doing the boring management stuff, I'm failing that person, not me. I'm failing that person. Like, this is their job, it's their livelihood, it's all of that. Like, so I think management is hugely, hugely important. And I take huge exception to these people that are like, management bad, leadership good. Like, nope, gotta have both.
Yeah. And, I think I was one of those for a while. But based on our conversations and learning more and developing different folks, where I'm really landing is management is what you need to do. Leadership is how you do it.
Ah, I like that.
Yeah,
That's
I thought
good.
you
Yeah. There you
yeah,
go. All
to
right.
share that one. Yeah, and I'm like, no, because there are the roles and responsibilities of what you have to do, and care and feeding of people is the biggest part of it, right? You should be spending 60% of your time caring and feeding for your people. And that number just fascinates people. They're like, no, I need to be doing my job. Well, that is your
Guess
job.
what? Yeah, that's your job. That's it. If you think doing the job is your job, that's not it.
Yeah, yeah. So, we're getting close to time here. What advice would you have to new managers coming in, to the workforce today and growing?
Learn constantly, make self-development your number one activity. It's your responsibility to be the best leader to these folks. Like, look, you have these people are your responsibility. Their careers are your responsibility. They're looking to you to take care of them. If you're not constantly learning and sharpening yourself, you're going to fail them. Don't do that. Like that, and nobody's going to tell you to do that. Your boss isn't going to tell you to do that. But if you're not like reading something every day and keeping yourself knowledgeable, if you're not constantly assessing, if you don't have a methodology for managing talent and assessing and looking at all that stuff, like, you're failing. You need to have all those things. Take it seriously. Like, that's, to your point, that's your job.
Yeah. We appreciate you joining us, and we look forward to you joining us again. We have different speakers every week talking about the different styles of management and leadership because there is no one right way. But our goal is really to get people to follow us, right? That's what leadership is about, is to have people following, engaging, and executing and winning. So thank you all. Have a
Thank
great
you.
day. Thanks, Bill. Appreciate it.